Nope. All right, so these are the Chapter 12 notes for soil. It covers a lot of different topics. This is going to be 3.5 weeks. It's going to take us all the way up until Thanksgiving. So make sure that you write down the stuff in red. Make sure that you listen to me. If you do not listen to me, you're going to miss stuff. All right. Some people I heard don't listen through it. They just stop and play, and you actually have to listen to me or you're going to purposefully miss stuff. So soil, what is soil? This is 12.1. I'm only going to cover this very briefly because we're only spending 2 days on it. Soil is made of rock, waste, water, gas, nutrients, and most of all, microorganisms. 1 teaspoon of soil has 1 million bacteria, thousands of fungi, algae, and protists. Soil is very dirty. It has a ton of stuff in it. Soil forms from weathering. What that means is that it is the breakdown of rocks and minerals. So weathering, not like weather precipitation, but weathering like the breakdown of rocks and minerals. And deposition is the addition of more minerals. Same thing with erosion. Decomposition is the breakdown of organic material. All right, so I said that word erosion. This is 12.2. We're going to talk about this Dust Bowl because that was mainly erosion. So erosion. It's when the top part of the soil is blown away or taken away by water. So either wind or water will take away the top layer of soil. Erosion and deposition can actually help make soil in an area, but it had to come from somewhere else. We usually cause erosion, just like the Dust Bowl. Root systems will help prevent erosion, but if there are no plants there or trees there, then erosion can very easily occur. With the different types of agriculture, we can help reduce erosion. So by not doing straight lines on here, by doing the curved lines, this will actually help prevent erosion because of the wind patterns. Overgrazing also causes erosion because the plants will get eaten by the animals and they won't have a chance to grow back. So there is a carrying capacity for the animals in the pasture. If you go over that carrying capacity, then erosion will occur. And that's really what happened with the Dust Bowl. People overgrazed and they used the land for farming. So what happened is that with the farming, they would plant the plants, and during the time that the plants were growing, during the summer and early part of the fall, everything was fine. There was no erosion, there was no Dust Bowl. It didn't happen until after the harvest, where the land was bare, that erosion and the dust storms occurred, once the plants were gone. So in an area, something needs to be planted all year round, or the land needs to be taken care of in some way in order to not have desertification occur. That's when you have loss of land due to erosion, overgrazing, and overfarming. This is a definition that you definitely need to know. All right, moving on. There's different types of soil conservation efforts, one of them being FARM, ironically enough, Farmer-Centered Agriculture Resource Management Program. Basically, it's to help farmers with their trade. A lot of times farmers before were kind of left to the wind. You do what you want, you take care of your land, but then the government had to step in and help them out with money, help them out with erosion, because everything started going downhill once the Depression had hit. Whoops, wrong way. All right, soil pollution. Oh man, this happens all the time. With soil pollution, you have the problem of too much watering. So you can either have waterlog or you can have salinization. Salinization, this nice fun word down here. This is when we use water that has salt in it. Our water, our tap water, the fountain water that they use for the farms that you see with the sprinklers, that has salt in it, natural salt. And if you use too much of that water, you'll have salt build up in the soil, and that's salinization. What they end up having to do is flush it with pure water, but if there's plants there, then the plants will end up getting waterlogged. So to desalinize, you either have to plant new crops or water the ground when there's no plants there. So that's why sometimes you'll see the flushing of water even though there's no plants actually growing. All right, I'm going to move on, so you might want to pause it. All right, there's different methods to mining. When it comes to mining, you have basically loss of land and loss of money. We need the minerals, but it's really expensive to do this, and it completely destroys all of the ecosystem with mining. So these are the impacts for the environment of mining. You need to list at least 3 in your notes. So you have increased erosion, clogged waterways, you have water pollution, acid drainage, air pollution, and disruption of ocean ecosystems because of dredging, where you're pulling up the ground underneath, and that changes the ocean currents. These were some of the laws that came in with mining in 1872 because they can claim land as their own, but there's certain amendments and liens on the land that they have to take care of it after they're done mining it. All right, 12.3. This section is on agriculture, food. Now there are different types of agriculture. First of all, in early agriculture, we were selectively breeding and didn't know it. It happens naturally. It's when you eat an apple and it was a really good apple, like it tasted really good and it was big, so we would use those seeds to plant them again. So then we would grow trees that had apples similar to the ones we ate. That's selective breeding, when we choose what seeds we want to end up planting. People did that with corn from the very beginning. We wanted yellow, sweet corn. All right, so different types of agriculture. There's traditional, where it's powered by people and animals. No fossil fuels. We're going old school here. There is industrial, where it covers a huge amount of land. It's efficient, but it uses a lot of chemicals, and it's a huge monoculture area. So if there's a disease, it's going to cause a huge problem. All right, last one is the green revolution. This has nothing to do with energy. So it's, it's not energy. They call it green revolution because it has to do with covering the land with food. In the early 1900s, scientists wanted to increase farming techniques for more varieties and for more quantity to try and solve world hunger. It was great because it helped lower world hunger, like it did actually significantly decrease it, but it was at higher cost, more erosion, more pollution, salinization was worse. So overall, food comes at an environmentally costly price. All right, pests and weed control. All right, so what's a pest? A pest is organisms that cause us problems. Weeds are plants that cause us problems. So there's pests and weeds. We will use pesticides. They're chemicals to kill organisms that bother our plants. Pesticides are usually used in excess, and because of that, the extra will just sit in the soil. It'll get in the groundwater. It'll cause problems with humans. It'll also cause problems with animals because they're using the land, they're walking on it, they're laying on it, so they'll end up using up that extra chemical. So that's why when you use pesticides or fertilizer, you only want to use the very little amount you need, or even maybe under, so that the excess doesn't go back into the ecosystem. So biological pest control, it's a solution to some of the pest problems. They use a bacteria from the soil on caterpillars and larvae, so they're using actually something natural from the soil. They're just harnessing it from it. And biological pest control will also bring in other predators that will kill the invasive species, but the problem usually becomes is that the predators become invasive, just like the problem with the mongoose and the Norwegian brown rat. All right, integrated pest management is when you have a combination of all of these techniques. Usually it works the best, is when you have a combination of everything and you suit it to your situation. All right, food production. I'm going to fly through this one kind of fast. All right, food security. Food security is a guarantee of adequate food for everybody, whole world, solve world hunger. I know that sounds crazy, but yeah, trying to solve world hunger, trying to take out malnutrition. Malnutrition is when you don't get the right nutrients and the right amount of food in your diet, and this can actually cause disease. All right, the big thing with the food is genetically modified organisms. This is huge. You eat these every day and you don't even know it. It is 85% of corn, 90% of soybean, cotton, and canola crops. So 85% of the corn you eat is GMO, genetically modified organisms. 90% of soybeans and cotton is GMO. What we're going to do later is have a lab where you're going to be testing GMO foods to organic foods to see which one you like and which one actually tastes better. And it'll be a blind taste test. The reason that these can be bad is because they can be dangerous to eat. They have genes in them that are not natural. They have DNA in them that's not natural, so our body might not be able to break it down. They can have super pests because some of these GMO plants will be bred to be resistant to pests, but not all pests. So some evolution can happen there. And also cross-contamination. You can have a GMO plant next to a farm that's organic, and you can have the pollen crossing over, which can cause huge, huge lawsuits. The benefits are that you use less chemicals and there's less carbon dioxide emissions with all of this. Oh, hey, there's the slide for it. So you can have resistance to bugs. You use less chemicals. People will have to travel out there less, so it's less carbon dioxide emissions. Overall, GMO foods, the goal was to help solve world hunger. Hasn't done any of that. It's really driven by money, by businesses making money. All right, industrial food feedlots. These are factory farms, a warehouse of animals getting energy-rich food. Why is it good? Gives us more food, keeps the soil intact, use less chemicals, and the manure can be used for our vegetables. It's bad because all of those animals have to receive antibiotics. PETA, the Pet Protection Agency, actually says that this is harmful to animals, that it's not natural for them, and they have to receive antibiotics and steroids in order to survive, and this can contact us, and it can get into our groundwater as well. They also have fish farms where they will use the fish and create a alternate environment and farm fish that they want, and actually create GMO fish as well. Please make sure that you do write all of this down, so if you need to go back or if you need to pause, please do so. And one of the last thing is seed banks. Because we change the seeds of food all the time, there's actually a seed bank that they keep by the Department of Agriculture of all the original foods, so that if we ever need to go back to the original, we have it. It is stored. All right, sustainable agriculture is, oh, that is not what I wanted. Okay, sustainable agriculture, this is going to keep the soil intact. This is going to have good quality of soil, water, and genetic diversity, and this is also organic. Sustainable agriculture that is going to keep our soil, keep our water, and keep genetic diversity is our organic food. Yes, the one that costs a lot more at the store, but it's environmentally friendly. It can yield just as much as other agricultures, and it's made more for taste and healthy and for the environment, so that it's being bred for taste and not for transport. Because if you notice, a lot of food comes from really far away. Well, they're going to breed it with traits that will help it sustain the travel. So like tomatoes with a thicker rind, thicker skin, because it has to travel so far and it won't bruise as easily. To where organic food is bred for its taste, so that it'll taste good. The last thing is a CSA. This is an agreement with farmers where consumers can sign and pay a farmer directly for their food and their milk. This allows farmers to grow more for taste, and it gives the farmers job security because they're not trying to sell their items to a grocery store. Instead, the consumers are going right to the farm and picking them up. I know a friend that does that with milk. She buys all her milk straight from the farmer. She goes and picks it up every week. People do that a lot with cheese and with a lot of their vegetables during harvest time, so that they have the fresh vegetables, they're organic, and they're getting them straight from the farmer. They don't have to go through a third party. So a lot of times that can end up being cheaper too. Because of the area we live in, we can do that. There are farms out here where you can sign a lease and get your food straight from their farm, get your milk straight from their farm instead of having to go to the grocery store, which saves a lot on the agriculture, the environment, and it helps your health as well. All right, make sure you have all this down and replay it if you need to. It's due on Monday in your folder.